that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everyone. I struggle to do this, especially on my own. I honestly, I don't know. I don't know what I can say that other people haven't said and say it any better or worse, or I don't know what to say about this book. I honestly don't. I have notes, I have bits of the plot there, but the plot doesn't even really matter in the end, does it? After all, we are getting a biased account from a biased source. Can you notice that I write these notes, but I don't script out my videos? So it's all off the cuff. As I grow more subscribers, right, I have to kind of reiterate things. And I always wanted this channel to be, and a bit of it is laziness, I won't deny that. But part of it is, some of people make these videos so professional, and it's great for that. But I always wanted to just be that friend in the room, you know, that you're hanging out with and you just start spitballing about books with, or a show, or a game. You know, I never wanted to be anything more than that. I'm just that friend that you want to talk to about your favorite things. And I'm giving you my perspective. That's all I've ever wanted to be. But I am a simple man. I never went to college. I have dreams, I have goals, I have not pursued them as heavily as I probably should have. I'm 1 year away from 25, and I have not done much. I say all that because this series is in the future, which you may not realize if you don't pay attention. Kind of near the end of the span of everything, as the sun is dying out, which is not really a plot point heavily in this one. But if you listen to reviews, if you listen to podcasts, they'll mention it. Now, this is an in-universe text. Severian is our main character, and it is being written in the future. But the story is his past. But because it's being written by Severian, it is biased. It is not the complete and accurate truth of events. Of course, you could play skeptic forever and then not trust anything in this book, but that's not the way to really enjoy the book. Generally, things that are happening did happen. But when it has to do with character, pay attention, because a lot of things may not be true. You look at how Severian treats women in this book, and even with his filtered lens, it still comes across as kind of bad. But again, I say all this, there's a plot going on, and the plot matters. But so much of this book also is thematic. Right? You could talk about that for hours with people, and people have done it, and I'm not going to do it better than Philip Chase. Or Christopher Rauchio, or if you say his last name, that's making the Sun Eater books. I'm not going to say any better than those people. I'm not. I'm not going to try. Because I'm just a simple man with a simple brain who's, oh, frick, in a year's time, or for you, a couple months, because that's when I'll be uploading this. But for me, I got a little bit more longer to go, but oh my gosh, my brain will stop developing. That might be a myth, but that's scary. I mean, you could still learn after that, right? It's just your capacity has reached its, I don't know how it works. Again, I'm a simple man. Anyway, there's a lot to talk about this book, and I'm not going to hit all the beats I would like to. I'm not going to even bother trying. It's 5:30 in the morning. I don't have the brain capacity for it regardless. But I will say, I haven't read the entire series yet. I hear that also helps with these books. I will say Philip Chase did a video on this, which significantly helped. Also, I watched the huge stream on, was it Book Talk, which had Tudor Ramble, had Philip Chase, had Joanna. These are different YouTubers. Had an author, Christopher, sorry, Raggi on there. I'm probably saying his last name wrong. But he's doing the Sun Eater books that I plan on reading long down the line. I watched that, and then there's a podcast on Spotify called Azabo Soup, and they went through the book 2 chapters by chapter and discussed it. So that was very helpful. Do I understand some things that maybe I'm not supposed to in a first read? Maybe. They said they tried to do it the best to not spoil anything beyond book 1. But at the same time, I'd probably be completely and utterly lost without them. So, by and large, this is a in-universe written account of the past. And we get to learn a little bit about Severian's life, and then the story kind of just ends, and it really seems like I need Claw on the Conciliator to get any sort of answers. I also hear every book after this is much better. I don't know how you manage that. The prose are beautiful. Gene Wolfe really has a way with words, and it's very evocative. And I don't say this too much from reading books. I'm not the most visual guy all the time, but it evokes such an atmosphere that is really quite... I've yet to feel that in any written medium as much as I have in like video games, but I felt it here, and it felt nice. I'm curious to see where this series goes ultimately. In terms of this first book, there's a lot of meat to talk about with stuff, but I'm probably not going to because it's been done before and done better. But this is also my non-spoiler section, and I'm kind of just blathering. Do I recommend this book? I don't know. It's really hard to say. I think this is harder than Malazan to appreciate. And without podcasts, I would have been surely doomed. But I do think if you liked Malazan, you might love this. It all really depends. I definitely... My brain certainly hurt after I finished the book. Does that make sense? Like, I had to actively use it. It hurt my head, which doesn't happen very often, but I guess my brain's reaching its limit. The computer is putting on its fans very hard in my brain. So, but I did enjoy it. So I suppose I recommend it, but I also acknowledge 100% that it's not for everyone. So with that, I think what I can say ultimately for non-spoiler is that try it. You will know whether or not the rest is for you or not. And if it's for you, it'll be really for you. And if it's not, it's okay. There's other books to enjoy. I'm getting to spoilers if that's even really possible. If you don't want any of that, well, there's the door. So we get certain phrases here that I try to write down everything I thought might be important. So like the Commonwealth is kind of what this place is referred to genuinely. We meet this character named Vodalus. There's this order of the Seekers of Truth and Penitence. You notice that Severian is writing this story after the fact. We have this thing called the Mechian Tower. We learn about a Feast of Holy Catherine. And again, I still don't fully understand the religion that this society has, but it's clearly taken things from our current day stuff but it's different. We also learned that there's no woman in the tortures that the Severian is a part of. We also learned that humans, or at least Severian, calls Earth Earth. Not E-A-R-T-H, but U-R-T-H. Severian meets Valeria. See, there's so much stuff here, and I don't even remember all of the things. Alton Cyby? C-Y-B-Y. I don't know. And Severian have this discussion that was really interesting. And I could go into exactly what they talked about, but honestly, I don't remember now. I remember writing this, and I had a whole bunch to say when I read this portion, and now I don't remember. Severian gets infatuated with a prisoner called Thecla, who, again, I would have never kind of put this all together if I wasn't listening to this podcast, but she seems to be, or a lot of what the torture skill does is have like political prisoners, because of the what was it called? Did I write it down? I forget, did it? The Autarch, who's basically the one in charge. Will take like concubines or brides or something of the sort with political families, and it's kind of like a keeping them in check sort of thing, kind of, where you put them in the torturers guild and they kind of either stay there and get tortured, or I don't it's a bit confusing, but that's basically what Thecla is. But Severian very quickly starts to like her. Gorlos, who's like Severian's boss, asks Severian to keep Thecla company because he went in there once when he wasn't supposed to, and she really enjoyed his company. So right now they're trying to, not rough her up. So they allow him to do that. Also, again, to the beauty of the prose and the complexity of this whole story, Gorlos has such complexity, but pretends to be simple, which I think is really interesting. Like, there's a lot more under the surface with Gorlos, but he hides it behind certainty and simplicity. And then prostitution. Severian, they don't want Severian to be doing anything with Thecla. So they give him some prostitutes to get that urge out. Now later on, again, we never explicitly get any mentions of sex with Thecla. But something, again, I noticed that kind of bothered me was the way the chapter was done. Later on, there's a scene between him and Thecla. And it's kind of disorienting and confusing as you continue to read, and then it's kind of like the next day and it's over and done and they move on. And it was really weird. And I didn't really know what to make of it because I'm a dumb child, even though I'm definitely not a child anymore. I'm a full-grown man. Anyway, when I listened to the podcast, it said, and again, the book's also very interpretive, but to them it seemed very apparent because of who Severian is, who, again, I also didn't realize is the Autarch currently. How does he become that? Well, I guess I have to read more to find out. But he is, he's the Autarch writing this in his past, kind of like a memoir of himself, I guess. Anyway, but they suggest that Thecla and Severian most definitely had sex. And it was a bit of a, he tried to rush past that because he didn't want to call attention to that, so he kind of just rushed through that portion. Just kind of, so the disorientation was on purpose. The stuff like that you just wouldn't notice. Or how about this? Do you think this is a fantasy series? Because you'd be wrong. Like, they're in this castle, fortress sort of situation. And if you blink and you miss it, you will miss the fact that they are basically living on an old spaceship / like base. And you can just miss that. So that's important. While Severian is with a prostitute who happens in his mind to look a bit like Thecla, he considers having sex with her, and then he doesn't. He threatens violence because I don't know what he was thinking. He thought it looked like Thecla. There's also speculation about this podcast about clones, which I'm not even going to get into. Also robots, which all might be in this first book, but you just wouldn't notice it on your first read through. I don't know. I have no clue. My brain can barely comprehend it as it is. But supposedly there are clones and robots. I don't know. I didn't see that, but maybe it's there in plain sight and I'm just an idiot. I don't know. But that's something to ponder, I suppose. Maybe that's why she looks a lot like Thecla, except that when he actually goes in to do the deed, he realizes that she doesn't really look like Thecla, and I don't know if this is just because he's getting cold feet. I don't really understand, but then he starts getting angry and kind of violent. But she says, strong people make their wishes reality. So she's basically to prevent herself from getting harmed because he threatens physical violence. She retorts, well, if you're strong enough, if you're a strong man, if you're a strong guy, then it really doesn't matter if I am Thecla or not. You are strong enough to make your wish that you were with Thecla be true, so you can pretend that I'm her and get pleasure and derive it from that. If you're strong enough to make that your reality or whatever. And that's what kind of saves her from getting harmed. But also in a sense, it also shows that he's utterly weak, because he was outsmarted and outplayed by this girl. I mean, thankfully so. I don't want her to get abused because he's having a little hissy tantrum fit. But yeah, I really don't like Severian either. I don't know if I'm supposed to. I think he wants me to like him, but I don't like him. Anyway, yeah, and then, like I said, Severian and Thecla do get the deed on. And then it seems to be Severian gets rather upset with Thecla. Possibly. That's an interpretation. Did he actually go to help her out, to save her like he promised, or did he go straight to his boss to inform, and then... Does he not know what's about to happen, or did he deliberately choose this? It's up to you to decide. Thecla is tortured in one of the most horrific ways possible with this fake machine that, I say fake because it's not something that exists in real life, but the way it's described is pretty awful. Anyway, and then Severian feels a little bad about it. Just a little bit. He allows her to kill herself. And she does. Severian is in big trouble because of this. And he's excluded from the guild. He's forced to work somewhere else. Because to kill him would admit that there's faults within the guild. That, somebody could go rogue, which they don't want that to be a thing. So they allow him to live. Severian sightsees because he's never been far beyond his little citadel. But authorities pick him up because he's causing a commotion, because he's dressed up in his torture garb. So that scares people. There's some weird dreams that I really didn't understand. We also meet Dr. Talos, who seems to be like a playwright or director. He's pretty fun. We get Claw the Conciliator, which is the next book title, so I thought that was fun. We meet a character named Agia. And then there's this I'm so lost by most of this. I still listen to a podcast. I'm still not fully. So there's like these botanical gardens. Okay, and when I think of that, right, I'm thinking of Batman Arkham Asylum. I'm thinking like, flowers and stuff. That's what goes in my mind. Anyway, in this place, there's different areas that seem to go into different rooms. At first, I thought it was just a holodeck situation, like in Star Trek, where it just like simulates other things. But it's also been called to my attention that it could just actually be different dimensions. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what that means, but the whole section of the botanical garden situation was rather confusing to me. Oh, I should also mention, I forgot to add, that people are trying to kill Severian. That was a whole situation. And he's just been distracting himself with this whole botanical gardens nonsense while he's supposed to be preparing for the duel that he's supposed to have. Anyways, all this is going on. I'm basically lost at this point. I'm trying to understand it. The only thing getting me through all the pros and people's podcasts where even when they explain it to me, I'm still kind of lost. So that's all going down. And in between this time, Severian's been rather romantic with Agia, along with another woman. He's just... Also, one of the first things you notice with Severian is when he's discussing women, he'll mention their breasts first. Their breasts, or their hair, or their butt. But never them, really. It's another thing to not like Severian for. Anyway, they leave the botanical gardens. He's gonna get this freak on, but then he notices this note, which if you actually, or you can read what the note says in the book, it clearly is not talking about him specifically, and it's not meant for him. So then the question is, who's it for? And I wasn't paying enough attention, so I'm not exactly sure who it's for, but it wasn't for him. That I'm pretty certain of. Anyway, and then he eventually gets to do the duel, right? And that's a whole thing. I really don't have much to add on this. But he's still alive. We also have this vanishing building thing, which felt like something so much more symbolic than my understanding. I don't know if it was actually a vanishing building, because the next part of the very scene is that they somehow stumbled their way onto the play that Severian had promised Dr. Talos he'd arrive at. Accidentally. So was the vanishing building like a set? Like a little cardboard set that was put down? I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I'm lost. The pros are getting me through it, but I don't understand what's happening, so I can't exactly review it for you. I don't have anybody to talk to about it, so I'm just lost. But I still recommend it. There's a flashback with this character named Malrubius and Severian. And again, I was a bit confused here, because this is after the play. They're all sleeping, and I was confused. Was this meant to be like a predator situation? I don't know, because they're talking, Severian and him, from when he was younger. And at some points, it's like something about him getting close or something. And then he wakes up kind of like agitated, asking if someone was touching him. He's like, no. And then then Talos is like, no one's touching you. I've been awake all night. No one's been near you. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if that's what that meant. I don't know if it meant something else. I'm kind of lost. But that was the conclusion I drew, or that I could try to gather, was that something Severian didn't want it to happen when he was younger. I don't know. I don't know. I'm lost. I'm lost in the story. I don't know what's happening, and I keep going. And then I try to talk to you about something I don't even understand. Something that was interesting about Talos' character, when they're all receiving their payment for working in the play, he receives no payment. Because the act of creating it, the act of performing it, and sharing it with the world is his reward. Which I just thought was something kind of sincere and endearing for this. Whether or not that's entirely truthful to who his character is, I don't know. But it was a nice scene, despite that. Um, and then, like I said, the story just kind of ends. I mean, it has an ending, but it also isn't like doesn't really answer anything. Isn't really a satisfactory ending. But by and large, that's that. And as I confusedly tried to explain to you the plot, there's a lot of themes also to go into this. But so many people have done it better than me. I'm not gonna bother trying. I'm not like that. Maybe if I was bouncing off somebody else's brain, I could do a better job of that. But on my own, it's not clicking for whatever reason. Maybe on a reread, it'll be like, snap, I'll just get it. I don't know. But by and large, despite half the novel being rather confused as to what was actually happening, I still rather enjoyed it. I don't know what that says about me, but I think a lot of people can relate to that. I am excited for Claw and the Conciliator, even though, will I understand it? Will I know what's going on? I hope so. I don't know. But I'm sure I will enjoy the read regardless. So, those are my jumbled, ADHD addled, confused thoughts on this book. If you want to give me some elaborations that don't spoil any of the future books, I would appreciate it. Um, and as always, thanks for watching. And I'll see you when we talk about Claw and the Conciliator, if you're only watching me for that. I don't know. But it's been a pleasure, despite my confusion. Till next time.